My wife Jessica and I had been planning this trip for months. 5 years of marriage, and honestly, things had been pretty rocky lately. I'd been pulling crazy hours at the office. I work in accounting for a mid-sized firm, nothing glamorous but it pays the bills. Jessica had been complaining that we never spent time together anymore, that I was always buried in spreadsheets or dealing with some client crisis. She wasn't wrong. When was the last time we had a real conversation that didn't involve whose turn it was to take out the trash or whether we needed milk from the store? The coastal town we picked was this picture-perfect place called Seabrook Harbor, about 4 hours north of where we live. Jessica found this bed and breakfast online, the Lighthouse Inn, and man, the photos looked incredible. Right on the beach, wraparound porches, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't cheap, but I figured we deserved it. 5 years of marriage, and we'd never really done anything this nice together. Our honeymoon was basically a long weekend at a casino hotel because that's all we could afford back then. I remember being genuinely excited for the first time in months. Maybe this was exactly what we needed to get back on track. I even took the full 2 weeks off, which my boss wasn't thrilled about, but I told him it was non-negotiable. Jessica seemed excited too, at least at first. She spent weeks planning activities, lighthouse tours, wine tastings, this fancy seafood restaurant she'd been dying to try. We both needed this. The drive up was actually pretty great. We talked more in those 4 hours than we had in weeks. She told me about this new project at her marketing firm, and I actually found myself listening, really listening, instead of just nodding while thinking about work. We played that stupid game where you try to spot license plates from different states, and she laughed at my terrible jokes. For a minute there, it felt like we were those newlyweds again, the ones who used to stay up all night just talking about everything and nothing. When we pulled up to the Lighthouse Inn, I knew we'd made the right choice. The place was even more beautiful in person, white clapboard siding, blue shutters, roses climbing up a trellis by the front door. Our room was on the second floor with a view of the ocean, and Jessica actually squealed when she saw the antique four-poster bed. I hadn't seen her that happy in ages. The first couple of days were honestly amazing. We slept in late, had breakfast on the porch, walked hand in hand along the beach. Jessica seemed more relaxed than she'd been in months, and I started thinking maybe we'd turned a corner. Wednesday morning we went on this lighthouse tour, and she was taking pictures of everything, laughing at the tour guide's corny jokes. I caught myself thinking about how beautiful she looked with the ocean breeze in her hair. But then something shifted, and I can't quite put my finger on when it started. Maybe it was Thursday morning when I woke up and she was already dressed, scrolling through her phone with this weird little smile on her face. When I asked what was so funny, she just said, "Work stuff," and put the phone away quick. That should have been my first red flag, honestly. Jessica hates her job, she's always complaining about her boss or some impossible deadline. She ever smiles at work stuff. Friday was when I really started to notice the changes. She wanted to go explore the town alone while I hung out at the beach. Said she needed some me time to browse the little shops and galleries. Fair enough, I guess, I'm not exactly the shopping type anyway. But when she came back 3 hours later, she seemed different. Distracted. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with whatever touristy junk she'd bought. The phone thing got weird too. She'd always been pretty casual about leaving it around, we've never been one of those couples who check each other's messages or anything. But suddenly she was taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And she was getting texts at all hours. Her phone would buzz during dinner and she'd glance at it with this little smile, then flip it face down and try to act normal. When I asked who was texting so much, she said it was her sister planning some surprise for their mom's birthday. Saturday was the worst. She said she wanted to go to the spa at this fancy resort about 20 minutes away, get a massage and maybe a facial, make a whole day of it. Sounded great to me, I was looking forward to just lying on the beach with a beer and a book. But then she was gone for almost 7 hours. 7 hours. I called around 4 p.m. because I was starting to worry, and she sounded breathless. Said she'd lost track of time, they'd had a cancellation so she got extra treatments. When she came back to the room that evening, she definitely looked relaxed, but not in the way you look after a day at the spa. More like she'd been doing something she really enjoyed. The walk started that weekend too. Long walks along the beach by herself, sometimes twice a day. She'd say she needed to clear her head, that the ocean air helped her think. I offered to come with her a few times, but she always had some excuse. I looked tired, she walked too fast, she just needed some space to process work stress. Work stress that apparently made her smile at her phone all the time. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. We were on vacation, she was finally relaxing, maybe she was just enjoying having some freedom from our usual routine. But deep down, something felt wrong. The woman sharing my bed wasn't quite the same woman I'd married 5 years ago, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. Sunday night is when everything started unraveling, though I didn't know it at the time. I'd been having trouble getting good rest, the bed was comfortable enough, but my mind kept racing. All those little weird moments from the past few days kept replaying in my head like a broken record. Jessica's secretive smiles, the constant texting, those impossibly long absences. I kept telling myself I was overthinking everything, but my gut wouldn't let it go. I must have finally dozed off around midnight, but something woke me up maybe an hour later. The room felt different somehow, and when I reached over, Jessica's side of the bed was empty. The sheets were cold, like she'd been gone for a while. I figured maybe she'd gone to the bathroom or down to the kitchen for a glass of water. The inn had this policy where guests could help themselves to drinks and snacks anytime. But then I heard it. Soft laughter coming from outside our window. Not the kind of laughter you hear when someone's watching TV or reading something funny on their phone. This was different. Intimate. The kind of laugh Jessica used to make when we were first dating and I'd whisper something stupid in her ear. I got up and looked around the room, and that's when I noticed the balcony door was cracked open. We hadn't opened it when we went to bed. I specifically remembered Jessica complaining about the ocean air making her hair frizzy. My heart started beating faster as I crept toward the door, trying not to make the old floorboards creak. I could hear her voice now, low and soft, drifting in through the gap. She was definitely talking to someone, but it wasn't the kind of conversation you have with a friend or family member at 1 a.m. The tone was all wrong, too gentle, too affectionate. I caught fragments of sentences, miss you too. And, can't wait to. And then, clear as day, I love you, Tyler. Tyler. Not me. Tyler. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My wife was standing on our balcony in the middle of the night, telling some guy named Tyler that she loved him. Part of me wanted to charge out there and demand an explanation, but I couldn't move. I just stood there listening to my marriage fall apart through a crack in the door. She was out there for maybe 20 more minutes, speaking in whispers I couldn't quite make out. But the tone never changed, sweet, loving, the way she used to talk to me when we were falling in love. When she finally came back inside, I pretended to be asleep. She slipped into bed quietly, probably thinking she'd gotten away with it. I lay there staring at the ceiling until sunrise, my mind going in circles. Who was Tyler? How long had this been going on? Was this whole vacation just an excuse for her to see him? The questions wouldn't stop coming, and none of the possible answers made me feel any better. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was going to confront her. I deserved to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything we'd built together. But I wanted to do it right, not in anger, not in the heat of the moment. I was going to give her a chance to explain herself, to tell me what was really going on. Maybe there was some innocent explanation I hadn't thought of. Yeah, right. Even then, deep down, I knew better. I barely touched my breakfast Monday morning. The inn's dining room was this cozy place with checkered tablecloths and mason jars full of wildflowers, the kind of setting that should have been romantic. Instead, I sat there pushing scrambled eggs around my plate while Jessica chatted about the weather like nothing had happened. She looked well rested, happy even, which made everything worse somehow. "You're quiet this morning," she said, buttering her toast. "Everything okay?" This was it. My chance to back down, to pretend I hadn't heard anything, to maybe save whatever was left of my marriage by living in denial. But I couldn't do it. The words came out before I could stop them. "Who's Tyler?" I watched her face change. It was subtle, most people probably wouldn't have noticed, but I'd been married to this woman for 5 years. I knew all her tells. The way her left eye twitched slightly when she was caught in a lie. How she pressed her lips together when she was buying time to think of an answer. The guilty flush that started at her neck and crept up to her cheeks. "What do you mean?" she asked, but her voice was different now. "Careful. I heard you on the phone last night, Jessica. On the balcony. Telling someone named Tyler that you loved him." She set down her toast and looked around the dining room, probably checking to see if anyone was listening. There were only 2 other couples there, an elderly pair reading newspapers and some young honeymooners who only had eyes for each other. "It's not what you think," she said finally. "Then tell me what it is." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her coffee cup like it might have the answers written at the bottom. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes, but somehow that made me angrier instead of sympathetic. He's an old friend from college. We reconnected a few months ago through social media, and we've been talking. Just talking. Just talking. At 1 in the morning. Telling him you love him. It's complicated, Michael. You wouldn't understand. That phrase, "you wouldn't understand," hit me like a slap. She was already pulling away, already making me the outsider in my own marriage. "Try me," I said. What came out next was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Tyler wasn't just some old college friend. He was her first real boyfriend, the one she'd dated for 2 years before they broke up when he moved across the country for graduate school. They'd reconnected on social media about 6 months ago, right around the time Jessica started complaining that we never talked anymore, that our relationship had gotten stale. At first it really was just catching up, she said. Innocent messages about their lives, their jobs, mutual friends from college. But then the conversations got longer, more personal. He was going through a divorce, she was feeling disconnected from me, and somehow they started leaning on each other for emotional support. "It just happened gradually," she said, like she was describing the weather. "We started talking every day, then texting throughout the day. He gets me in a way that I thought I'd lost. In a way that I don't, you mean?" She didn't deny it. That hurt more than anything else she could have said. But there was more. Of course there was more. 3 months ago, Jessica had to go to a conference in Denver for work. Tyler lived about an hour outside Denver. They met for dinner, just as friends, she insisted. One thing led to another. I didn't need her to spell out what "one thing led to another" meant. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. After Jessica's confession about Denver, I felt like I was drowning. We went back to our room in silence, and I just sat on the edge of the bed trying to process what I'd heard. My wife had been having an affair. Not just an emotional affair, though that would have been bad enough, but a full-blown physical relationship with another man. "There's more, isn't there?" I asked. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I was a glutton for punishment, or maybe I just needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. Jessica was standing by the window, looking out at the ocean. She nodded without turning around. "Tyler lives here. In Seabrook Harbor." The pieces started falling into place with horrible clarity. This whole vacation, this romantic getaway to celebrate our anniversary, had been an elaborate setup. She hadn't chosen this place randomly, she'd chosen it because her boyfriend lived here. "How many times?" I asked. "Michael, please. You don't want to know the details. How many times have you seen him since we've been here?" She finally turned around, and I could see she'd been crying. But I was past the point where her tears could make me feel sorry for her. Twice, she whispered. Friday when I said I was shopping, and Saturday at the spa. Friday's 3-hour shopping trip. Saturday's 7-hour spa day. She'd been with him both times, probably laughing about how gullible her husband was, how easy it was to sneak around behind my back. Are you planning to see him again before we leave? Another nod. Tomorrow. He took the day off work. Tomorrow was Tuesday. We were supposed to leave Wednesday morning. She was planning to spend our last full day of vacation with her lover while I sat around like an idiot, probably wondering why she seemed so happy all the time. I asked to see her phone. She hesitated, then handed it over. I don't know what I was expecting, but the reality was worse than anything I'd imagined. Hundreds of texts between them, going back months. Pictures I didn't want to see. Plans for their secret meetings. Conversations about me, how I was emotionally unavailable and impossible to talk to. How Tyler understood her in ways I never could. The worst part was reading how they talked about their future together. Tyler was in the middle of a divorce, and Jessica was clearly thinking about leaving me to be with him. They had it all planned out. She'd ask for a separation, we'd sell the house, she'd move to Seabrook Harbor to be with him. I was reading the blueprint for the destruction of my life, written in cute little text messages with heart emojis. How long have you been planning to leave me? I asked. I wasn't. I didn't. She couldn't even finish the sentence. We both knew she was lying. I scrolled through more messages, each one like a knife to the chest. Tyler calling her beautiful, telling her how much he missed her. Jessica responding with the kind of affection she hadn't shown me in years. They had inside jokes, pet names for each other, shared memories from their college days that somehow meant more than the 5 years she'd spent married to me. There was one message from just 2 days ago that broke something inside me. Can't wait to hold you again tomorrow. This sneaking around is killing me, but it'll all be worth it when we can finally be together for real. Jessica was reading over my shoulder. Michael, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way. You made choices, Jessica. Hundreds of little choices that led us here. And apparently you've already made the choice about what happens next. She didn't deny it. At that point, what would have been the point? I couldn't stay there another minute. Not in that room where I'd been lying next to my wife every night while she planned her escape. Not in that beautiful inn where she'd been sneaking out to call another man. Not in that perfect little coastal town where her boyfriend was probably waiting for her to text him back. I started packing immediately. Just threw everything into my suitcase without caring if it got wrinkled or organized. Jessica sat on the bed watching me, crying quietly, but I was past the point where her tears meant anything to me. Where are you going? She asked. Home. Back to our real life, the one you've apparently been trying to escape from for months. Michael, please. We need to talk about this. We can work through this. I stopped packing and looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd promised to love and cherish for the rest of my life, who had just systematically destroyed everything we'd built together. Work through what, exactly? The fact that you've been lying to me for months. That you used our anniversary vacation as cover to cheat on me. Or maybe we should work through how you and Tyler have already planned out your whole future together while I was sitting here like an idiot thinking we were trying to save our marriage. She didn't have an answer for that. What answer could there be? I finished packing in silence. Jessica made a few more attempts to convince me to stay, to talk things through, but her heart wasn't really in it. I think we both knew it was over. The only question was how messy the ending would be. Before I left, I had one more question. Are you going to see him today? She looked at the floor. I don't know. Maybe I should cancel. Don't cancel on my account. I'm clearly not part of your decision-making process anyway. The drive home was a blur. For hours alone with my thoughts, trying to figure out how I'd missed all the signs. How long had she been unhappy? When did she stop loving me? Was there anything I could have done differently, or was this inevitable from the moment Tyler sent that first message? I called my buddy Dave when I was about an hour from home. Dave's been my best friend since high school, and he's been through his own divorce, so I figured he'd understand. He told me I could crash at his place for as long as I needed, no questions asked. When I got there, he took one look at my face and handed me a beer without saying a word. That first night at Dave's, I told him everything. The whole sorry story, from the perfect first few days of vacation to finding out my wife had been using our anniversary trip to cheat on me. Dave listened without judgment, just nodded in the right places and kept the beer coming. "So what's your next move?" he asked around midnight. "I have no idea. Call a lawyer, I guess. Figure out how to divide up 5 years of marriage. You sure you want to go straight to divorce? Maybe couples therapy or something?" I thought about it for about 2 seconds. "Dave, she's been planning her exit strategy for months. She's got her whole new life mapped out with this guy. What exactly would we be fighting to save?" He didn't have an answer for that either. Because there wasn't one. It's been 3 months since Seabrook Harbor, and I'm finally starting to feel like a human being again instead of just a walking wound. The divorce papers were filed 6 weeks ago. Jessica didn't contest anything. I think she was so eager to start her new life with Tyler that she just wanted the whole process over with as quickly as possible. She moved out of our house the week after I got back from vacation. I came home from work one day and half our stuff was gone, her clothes, her books, the coffee table her mom had given us, even some of the wedding gifts that I thought belonged to both of us. She left a note saying she'd be back for the rest of her things when I wasn't home, and that we should communicate through lawyers from now on. That hurt almost as much as everything else. 5 years of marriage, and she didn't even want to face me to say goodbye. I found out through mutual friends that she'd moved to Seabrook Harbor 2 weeks later. Apparently Tyler's divorce was finalized, and they didn't see any reason to wait. According to Sarah from Jessica's work, they're living together in this cottage near the beach and seem really happy. Sarah said this like it was supposed to make me feel better somehow. Like I should be glad my ex-wife found her happiness with the man she cheated on me with. The hardest part has been dealing with our friends. Most of them have picked sides, which I guess was inevitable. Jessica's college friends all think I was emotionally unavailable, and that she deserves to be happy. My friends think she's a cheater who threw away a good marriage for some fantasy romance. The few couples who tried to stay neutral ended up awkwardly avoiding both of us rather than deal with the drama. I've been going to therapy twice a week since this whole thing started. Dr. Rodriguez is this no-nonsense woman who doesn't let me wallow in self-pity but also doesn't try to pretend that what happened wasn't devastating. She's been helping me work through the anger and the self-doubt and the million questions that keep me up at night. The biggest thing I'm working on is not blaming myself for Jessica's choices. It's easy to think that if I'd been a better husband, a better communicator, more emotionally available, none of this would have happened. But Dr. Rodriguez keeps pointing out that plenty of people have relationship problems without deciding to solve them by having an affair. Jessica could have talked to me about her unhappiness. She could have suggested couples counseling. She could have asked for a separation if things were really that bad. Instead, she chose to lie and cheat and plan her escape in secret. Those were her choices, not mine. I'm still living at Dave's place, but I'm looking at apartments. Somewhere smaller than the house Jessica and I shared, somewhere that doesn't have memories attached to every room. I've started working out again, something I'd let slide during the last year of my marriage. I'm reading books that aren't related to work. I even went on a date last week, nothing serious, just coffee with a woman I met at the gym, but it felt good to remember that there's life after Jessica. Some days are better than others. I still wake up sometimes and forget for just a second that she's not there anymore. I still catch myself starting to text her about something funny that happened at work before I remember that we don't do that anymore. But those moments are getting less frequent, and the good days are starting to outnumber the bad ones. The thing that surprises me most is that I'm not bitter anymore. Angry, yes. Hurt, absolutely. But I'm starting to realize that maybe Jessica did us both a favor. If she was that unhappy in our marriage, if she was that ready to throw it all away for someone else, then we probably weren't right for each other anyway. Better to find that out now than waste another 5 years trying to make something work that was already broken. I don't know what the future looks like yet, but for the first time in months, I'm curious to find out. And that feels like a start.